Could you start by explaining the different ways we see Antarctica and then your framing theory?
Today I was talking about ways in which nation states frame their Antarctic interests. And framing is a theory that comes from media studies and mass communication. And it's a concept that looks at the ways in which nation states and other actors want to promote their particular interests in the public sphere, and to set in place particular frames or understandings of topics of interest to them. And so today I was talking about two states, Antarctic states, China and Australia, and how they frame their engagement in Antarctica.
How are they framing their states different?
Well, Australia is a claimant state, and they claim 42% of Antarctica as the Australian Antarctic Territory. So when they frame, in the official statements of the Australian government speaking about Antarctica, they make great efforts in various ways through media, cultural, historical, community activities to promote the idea of Australia's historic rights in Antarctica and the reasons behind their claim, and through those deep connections that they have, which all help to underline their claim to sovereignty to a particular part of Antarctica. But at the same time, they're signatories to the Antarctic Treaty, and the Antarctic Treaty permits the claimant states both to promote their claims, but also for other states to ignore those claims. And Australia also promotes aspects of the Antarctic Treaty that are important to it, that it has a strong science program that's engaging in international cooperation. And when it comes to China, they're not a claimant state. They say that Antarctica belongs to no one. Some countries, like the United States, they use the word Antarctica as an international space. I haven't found that terminology in Chinese language. They just talk about it as belonging to no one, which is a different idea. And I found two different ways in which China's framing its Antarctic engagement. There is one particular approach of information directed towards foreign audiences, and there's a different style of information directed towards Chinese audiences. And I should say that when countries engage in framing, it usually relates to a perceived legitimacy deficit, that, is there some question about their rights or their interest in a particular issue? And of course for Australia, only 6 other countries recognise their sovereign claim. And for China, the media speculation about why they would be involved in Antarctica is very prominent in coverage about China and international coverage of China and Antarctica. So there is a legitimacy deficit, and both governments make efforts to frame the debates within their own interests. So for China, when they're talking to foreign audiences, they stress that China has legitimate interests in the Antarctic, that it has peaceful interests in the Antarctic, and that it's primarily interested in scientific activities. And in their official statements, they highlight that China is very interested in international collaborations. In the media reports published in Xinhua English, which is Xinhua English is part of the Chinese Communist Party government's media. It's one of their media outlets, particularly in the English one. It's the one that's directed towards foreigners, along with China Daily. So that's when you will find official statements that are clearly following the official frames. So it's not like it's not an independent media source. This is reflecting the government views. And it's interesting, in those media reports from Xinhua, it's actually quite hard to find examples or stories about China's international collaboration, but you will find a lot about talking about their scientific achievements, but they're very, very matter of fact and relatively limited coverage, interestingly, in English. In the Chinese language reports aimed at Chinese domestic audiences, there is detailed coverage of what China is doing in Antarctica. It's very patriotic. It is not emphasising, for example, the international collaborations. It's emphasising China's here, showing the flag, doing interesting things in Antarctica. And so there's a contrast between these two countries. They have obviously different national interests, and we can see by looking at media coverage and the message that is directed by the various governments with regard to their Antarctic interests, that we can see those interests reflected in the frames that appear in the media and websites and other materials directed by those governments.
Is there a right way to frame this?
There's no right or wrong way. I mean, framing is, I don't have a value judgment about framing. It's a phenomena that you can expect that you'll find different frames in the media. But it's something that states must pay attention to. If they want to be understood, if they want to deal with any misapprehensions about their intentions, then they need to pay close attention to the ways in which they articulate their Antarctic interests.
So you're just pointing out how they are different, you're not criticizing the way of framing?
No, I'm not. As I said, I don't have a value judgment about it. I think that we will find it for every state that has an Antarctic interest will be trying to present their interests and views in a positive way through the media.
How important is actually working with the media and give it the right information?
Well, the global media model is, from an economic point of view, is very, very challenged these days. And newspapers are running at a loss. Even television has limited resources. So journalists really welcome well-written copy that they can use undiluted and put into the newspaper, onto television. So if countries get very good at promoting their interests and can package it in a way that is not obviously propaganda, that looks like it has some balance and covers the range of what concerns might be, then they could be very successful, more successful than most at getting their frames out into the media.